Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Anonymous Investors Podcast. I am Jada's boyfriend, and today we are visited by the almighty, all-powerful, all-knowing, omnipotent God. God, how are you doing today on this fine evening?
I'm doing very good, very good. I this podcast is going to be published pretty late because somebody was taking a nap for 3 hours, and they kept sleeping, and they're a big nap guy. So this is not going to be published on the routine schedule. It's going to come out a little bit later.
You know what? There's nothing wrong with taking a nap, especially when the person you're trying to contact doesn't answer and you feel like you have a better chance of contacting fucking aliens through fucking SETI, okay? For those of you who don't know what the fuck SETI is, that is the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. Those motherfuckers have been sending out waves into outer space, radio waves, of course, into outer space through satellites, and they seem to have a better chance of contacting fucking aliens. It's also very late at night, so it's not like I can send my
What they
fucking
say, the
carrier.
best
It's not like
people,
I can
right,
send my fucking
are the
carrier
hardest
pigeon
people to
out.
reach.
Sorry, go ahead.
The best people, right? The most important people are the hardest people to reach.
Listen, if I have to send out fucking carrier pigeon to get a hold of you every week, this is gonna be a big problem. It's gonna be a big problem. Just telling you. The folks need to know. The folks need to know that.
You can't be sending out signals
The
in
one
your
guy.
dreams. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. You have to wake up.
Okay, fair enough. All right. So those of you who don't know, we always record like within a certain time frame. So it was a little bit before then, so I had some time, and I didn't feel like really sitting around doing nothing on the computer, just like dicking around. I already laid out some of the things that we wanted to talk about, so I said, all right, fuck it, like I'll go to sleep for a little bit, and then I didn't hear from him, so I was like, all right, fuck, like I don't know if we're doing it, but he's not the type of guy to just say he'll do it and then not do it. So I figured I'd just wait until he contacted me, which was a good move because then I don't really have to like wait around for him. So he was waiting around for me. You got to topsy turvy that motherfucker. Like Leon Black says, you got to topsy turvy that motherfucker. You got to interview them. They ain't got to interview you. You got to interview them, like from Curb. So shout out to Leon Black. Leon Black's fucking awesome. Also, JB Smooth's an awesome fucking actor. But anyway, there's a lot of stuff that we could talk about today. Obviously, me being Jada's boyfriend, there's been a lot of crazy stuff going on lately. Not particularly in the world of finance, but just in general. And all I just wanted to say was that, you got to keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth, son. I'll open-handed fucking smack you. Just like Jada and Will's relationship. Open. That's how it is. That's how it is, God. Open.
Indeed. Open relationship. Wow. Yeah, Chris Rock is much better than Will Bozo Smith, who can't even take a joke. That clown. That clown thinks he's in Philly or something like that. He would get his ass beat if he came into my streets, my section of town. We would have him jumped.
All I can think about is how in the last episode we had a segment about Home Depot and checking privilege, right? And the only thing I can think about is how entitled do these fucking babies think that they are? They could sit there and laugh at every other joke that Chris Rock has for every other person in that room that I'm sure to some extent bothers bothers those people, but they can't take the fucking joke. They think they're above the joke, right? They laugh at everybody else getting made fun of, but when it comes to their turn to get made fun of, they can't take the joke. And I hate people that do that. Such fucking entitled little babies. They think they're a protected class of citizens. They think they're better than everybody else. That is the definition of entitlement.
Indeed, that's what you're very entitled. You act like those people a lot. Right? You go around. You're sleeping. You're taking naps. Right? You're unable to take jokes. You're very you're very cranky all the time. You're taking a lot of naps, and basically you don't know what the hell you're doing. You gotta straighten yourself out.
I just find it funny how Also, just to say this too on a different note, Chris Rock is hilarious. Like, I'm gonna try to go see him now because I really like how he handled himself in that situation. He fucking ate that slap. That guy's a G. What a chin he has, huh? He ate that shit and he was just like, all right, moving on then. And everyone had his back. Anyone that didn't have Chris Rock's back there is a fucking bozo. Chris Rock's the man. He ate that shit. I don't know if you saw, but we won't play it here. But if you haven't seen it, Andrew Schultz from the Flagrant 2 podcast, he had this awesome like 3 minute monologue to open up his latest episode, and I think he called it like the roast of Will Smith or something like that. And the whole episode was them reacting to it, but the first 3 minutes was just like an opening monologue of him just cracking jokes left and right about Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith. And oh my god, was it so funny? He was just like, "Oh, Will Smith, a lot of people were saying he won like the Legacy Award that evening. No," and he goes, "That was reserved for the plumber that unclogged the drain at the Smith household."
Yeah, Chris Rock. Though I mean, he handled it like an idiot. He should have fired back with jokes 10 times as worse once he got slapped. Once you get slapped, you gotta go like, oh, it's a perfect opportunity to say like, you just slapped me, and August just also slapped your wife. She slapped her fucking cheeks. You gotta go like 10 times as hard with the jokes. You can't be walking around standing there like an idiot, bowing down to Will Smith. Are you a fucking clown? You don't bow down to nobody. You bow down to me, and me only.
Not to beat this topic dead, but it also seemed like Will Smith initially laughed at the joke and then he looked at Jada and saw that she was visibly upset by it. So then he made it into a big thing. It was almost like he had to win his wife's approval back, you know?
Right, because he was a clown. He was laughing and joking about it until she gave him right the evil eye. He looked at him and gave him the evil eye, and then he got up like a bozo and he made a fool out of himself. And then he was forced to resign from the academy because he's a total clown. Right? He should be boycotted. Nobody should give him any acting roles. He should throw him around, throw him into Russia, have him fight for Ukraine.
It's just so funny because there were so many other like comedians that came out that were making jokes after the fact, and oh my god, I loved it. Like Tom Segura, I don't know if you saw him. He was on Pat McAfee afterwards, and they were asking him like, "What do you think?" And he was just like, "Fuck that cuck." He goes, "If I'm on stage and I'm making jokes and you come on my stage," he goes, "I will disembowel you in front of your family." Oh man, so funny though. It's just crazy how people don't know how to take a fucking joke nowadays. Like he's literally making jokes about everyone in the room, just roasting them, and you think you're above the fucking joke because you're sensitive about losing your hair. It's different if like she had cancer, but she came out and said that she has alopecia. And I don't know if this lady knows this, but like the the longer humans live, like the greater the chance that they're not gonna have fucking hair. Like, how many fucking 90-year-old women or 90-year-old men do you see with fucking hair? Like, they have like half their fucking hair that they had when by the time they were like fucking 30. So, like, what does this lady think? Have you seen a fucking skeleton with hair? No. Like, have you seen a fucking corpse with hair that's been sitting there? No. Like, what the fuck? Like, what does this lady think? She thinks she's above everything like all these other bozos, and she's not.
Maybe she is. She's very sensitive about her hair. She has alopecia. That's a disease. It should be taken very seriously. Can't be walking around making fun of these people, right? They're very sensitive, right? They've been coddled their whole life. They're from Hollywood, and they should be respected. And you should bow down on the carpet that they walk on.
I couldn't help but think about the Ricky Gervais monologue from the Golden Globes in 2020, where he was just shitting on Hollywood. Like that's the immediately the first thing I thought of is he was just talking about how Hollywood is so disconnected from the real world. He was like, "None of you are in a position to lecture the public about anything." He's like, "You have less real world experience than Greta Thunberg." He's like, "So when you win your little award," he goes, "come up, accept it, thank you, little God, and fuck off." And that's the whole thing I was thinking about the entire time, because he just like the way that Ricky Gervais just ripped into everyone. Oh, and then he was roasting them for being friends with like Harvey Weinstein, and then he had some comments about Jeffrey Epstein too. It's fucking hilarious.
You should pull up a clip on Greta Thunberg and her speech, and explain to the people who she is. Let's pull up a clip on Greta.
So for those of you who don't know, I mean, I don't think we need to pull up a clip of her, but for those of you who don't know, that was the girl who, um, she's like she's the child of like these actors or whatever. I think that they're like Swedish actors, and she was just pushing for like climate change initiatives, but everything she was saying and pushing for, all these celebrities were like praising her. So like Leonardo DiCaprio was like, "Oh wow, she's so brave, like pushing for climate change initiatives and all this shit." And meanwhile, that fucking asshole's like just like riding around on a yacht, just like destroying the fucking, the coral reef and just destroying our oceans and polluting. And then he's flying around in a private jet emitting like 10 times the amount of carbon than like the average person combined, or excuse me, like a few of the average people like combined. And it's just funny because their carbon footprint, a lot of these people in Hollywood, like the things that they do, their carbon footprint is like 10 to anywhere from 10 to 100 times more than the average person, but yet they want to lecture the average person on like being better and not emitting as much carbon and not polluting as much. And it's just like you're in no position to lecture anyone. Like I use a lot less carbon than you. So, oh, you got a clip. Perfect. Play this shit. Oh, this is the lady who's like, "You've destroyed my childhood." You got to play this. Is this the speech where she just like loses her fucking mind? I don't want to rip into her too hard because she's a kid. So
I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you? You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words, and yet I'm one of the lucky ones. People are suffering. People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you
that's it. We're in the middle of a mass extinction. Like, what is that? What is? Here's another thing too that I'd really like to know. And like I said, I'm not getting like, conspiratorial here. This doesn't really have much to do
how
with the
dare
world of
you
finance.
look away
Oh, what's going on?
and
What are we
come
doing?
here saying that
Oh, okay.
you
So,
are still nowhere in sight.
what are we doing here?
You say you hear us and that you understand the urgency. But no matter how sad and angry I am, I do not want to believe that. Because if you really understood the situation and still kept on failing to act, then you would be evil, and that I refuse to believe.
End scene. End scene.
The popular idea of cutting
What
our
are we
emissions
doing? Get it off!
only gives us
Come on. I don't know what's going on with this clip. We're trying to end the clip, but it keeps fucking playing here. Hang on, folks. All right. Oh, you can tell I'm in a good mood. I'm feeling refreshed. I had a nice long nap, which God doesn't like because I took a little nappy. But what was I gonna do? Sit there and watch YouTube videos for 2 fucking hours, 3 hours? Get the fuck out of here, son. I didn't have that much to do. It's late at night. We record late at night. It's usually a good way to wind down, settle in. A lot of other shit that we could talk about that's going on. Just a little way to start the week. So I don't know if you hear me, God, but if you can just type in the chat and we'll circle back. He's having some connection issues lately. It's something he's been dealing with off stream too. It's got that Walmart connection. Anyway, those were back in the days. It's what we used to call it. Back in the days when I'd play games a lot more than I did.
You got mental connection issues. Your neurons not connecting.
My neurons aren't connecting. My neurons are firing right now. So you can't tell me shit, motherfucker. Anyway, so all right, he hears me, which is good, obviously, because he wanted to roast me. All right, so here's an interesting topic that I feel like we should discuss. So we're already, a while in here to the show, so we dragged this on for too long. Let's get back into some finance shit. Nice little segment of talking about Hollywood and the hypocrisy going on there. But here's something that I heard that I know that you'll be a fan of particularly. So big headline that came out. This is per CoinDesk. If you don't know, they're one of the leading cryptocurrency outlets. And they have a segment that came out today on policy. And the headline is Elizabeth Warren calls for the United States to create a central bank digital currency. The quote that she came out with is, I think it's time for us to move in that direction. And that's what she told NBC's Chuck Todd in a recent interview to be aired this upcoming Thursday. So, in response to the question on whether or not Bitcoin will at minimum face being regulated like a commodity, Elizabeth Warren replied, I think it's going to end up getting regulated using the subprime mortgage financial crisis that started in 2007 as an example of why it's needed. She didn't say what form of regulations might take place, but that regulation should take place. And there's also been, this past March, she announced a new bill to block cryptocurrency companies from conducting business with sanctioned companies. The Digital Asset Sanctions Compliance Enhancement Act, introduced with Senators Jack Reed, who's a Democrat from Rhode Island, Mark Warner, who's a Democrat from Virginia, John Tester, who's a Democrat from Montana, and others, which would allow the U.S. president to add any non-U.S. crypto-based company to the sanctions list if they support sanctions evasion. So I'm curious to hear what you think about this, because it looks like she's trying to regulate cryptocurrency to the point where it would be treated like a commodity. And I think it's something that is interesting to talk about because I know a lot of people in the crypto space are, particularly me, and I know that, God, you might feel the same way, feel strongly about potential overregulation in the cryptocurrency market.
You know what this sounds like? This sounds like communist Canada and how they regulated cryptocurrency, and every transaction over $1,000 has to be reported. Like they're fucking like their mother. Like, oh, I want to go to the store. I want to buy. Tell me. They're acting like their mother around here. That's what Elizabeth Warren is acting like. She wants to take everyone's money and, criticize Elon Musk for not paying enough taxes. And she wants to be everybody's mother. But then she wants to lie and say, oh, I'm an Indian. Give me money. She's the most corrupt individual there is. Elizabeth Warren. She should change her name to Elizabeth Bozo.
I love, every time I think of Elizabeth Warren, I think of two things. And whether or not you like Trump, this is the first thing I think of. When Trump is at a rally, and everyone's seen this fucking clip. This clip went super viral. And this was before Trump was deplatformed on every social network. But Trump said, I have more Indian blood in me than you, and I have none. That's the first thing that I thought of, which is hilarious. Because he almost was like a stand-up comic when he would do that and like do those routines. And he still does it at like his rallies where it kind of goes off the cuff, a little off the script, and just starts like ripping into people, like his political adversaries. Love him or hate him, he's hilarious in that respect. And then the second thing I think of is Elon Musk calling her Senator Karen. So I was just thinking about, I actually was sitting here thinking about, opening up with this story and referring to her as Senator Karen just because how funny it is. But yeah, it does seem like she's very keen on potential overregulation. And I'm glad you brought up Canada, for example, because Canada, if you remember that Freedom Truck, the Freedom Truckers protest that was going on, they actually used cryptocurrency as like to block transactions. They also blocked PayPal transactions, Venmo transactions, Cash App transactions, and they classified any sort of donation towards this freedom protest for the truckers as like an act of funding domestic terrorism, which is pretty absurd when you think about it, because these are literally just truckers who they didn't want to get vaccinated, and like that was the whole point of the rally.
Well, I have to disagree with them. I think everybody should be vaccinated, right? Vaccination is very important. It's very crucial. You should be vaccinated. You should get your booster shot, and you should do what you're supposed to do because you should care about the other citizens in the population and how they approach this issue and how they might be immune suppressed. And you should get vaccinated because you should show compassion towards the other individuals. And you should make sure you're vaccinated and you receive a booster every 6 months. And even if you want to enter areas, right, you should have to present a vaccination card to show that you're vaccinated in order to protect the population at large. That's what I believe, and I don't believe anything different than that. I think vaccination is very important. I'm vaccinated, so I think everybody should be vaccinated.
I completely agree. And I also think that Justin Trudeau, I don't know if you saw this, but he was vaccinated 8 times. And I think that that's a good number. I actually think he should be vaccinated at least 24 times because then it will reduce comorbidities and it will stop the spread of COVID.
And I heard when you get vaccinated, it actually makes you smarter. When you get vaccinated, that there's actually that the average. There's a study done. I think it was done in Harvard.
What is it like your body? What is it like your? Sorry to cut you off. What is it like your body?
No,
your body develops more.
I'm gonna tell you the study.
Lipids.
The person, right? The average person who takes the COVID vaccination receives an increase of 3 IQ points after taking the IQ test before and after. So they get smarter if you take the COVID vaccination.
This sounds very, very similar to my childhood, where when you were a kid and they had the Flintstone gummies, like the vitamins. People always ask me, like commonly, it's a very common question. When you're a genius like myself, you get a lot of questions about how you're so smart and like what you do and what are your daily routines. And one of the things I tell them, I go, from the time I was like 4 and of course I can't endorse this. This is just for entertainment purposes only. Do not follow up on this advice. I'm not responsible for anything you do with your personal health or what you ingest into your body. We bear no responsibility for that. This is just for entertainment purposes, of course.
But I do encourage everyone to get vaccinated. I do encourage that. So, I will take responsibility if something happens with the vaccine because nothing will happen with the vaccine. It has been tested. It is safe, right? And you must trust in the government. You must trust in me, and you must trust in the rest of society. Get vaccinated. And if you get vaccinated, you actually receive a sticker that says, I got vaccinated. So that's another perk.
Don't forget that in some municipalities they're also giving you $100 gift card for getting vaccinated as well. So that's really good. You could use that to buy as much Starbucks as you want, which is really good for the economy.
Yes, it's a good stimulus for the economy if we go into a recession to get a gift card and to make sure that the population is safe at large. During the early days of COVID, we had a lot of people that were very skeptical, and they shouldn't be skeptical because this is not a man-made virus. This is a naturally occurring virus, and there's vaccines for other naturally occurring viruses that are perfectly safe. So why wouldn't this one be safe? And it was produced and endorsed by Anthony Fauci, one of the most respected doctors in the world. So basically, we have to have faith in Anthony Fauci. And I have complete and utter faith in Anthony Fauci. He is a total genius. He has over 35 years of epidemiology experience, and I put my faith in him.
Anyway, it's interesting that you bring that up because I actually just wanted to say that this podcast in particular was released under an emergency use authorization. So we bear no legal responsibility for any advice that you follow up through under the production of this podcast and under anything that we talk about on this podcast. So like I said, you can't sue us. We bear no liability, just like Pfizer, Moderna, or Johnson & Johnson. So like I said, emergency use authorization, you can look it up. So we cannot be sued for anything we're saying on this podcast. So just know that by listening to this, just know that by listening to this, you bear you bear and waive all legal grounds to sue us. So thank you.
And that's very important because if someone listens to you for too long, they might blow their eardrum out because you talk very loud, right? You're talking in a very arrogant manner and a very disrespectful manner. And if people listen to you for too long, right, they might lose their hearing. So that's a good disclaimer that you put out there.
That includes you as well, you fucking bozo.
Way though, like I have to stress this point and make sure it's stressed very well. I encourage everyone to get vaccinated. Right now, we're only about 82% vaccinated nationwide, and there's no reason why we shouldn't be 99% vaccinated. If people want to go out, they want to go to baseball games, they want to go to bars, they should be required to show their vaccination pass. And if they don't want to show their vaccination pass, they shouldn't use the hospitals. They shouldn't be able to go to schools. And I believe, right, in people wearing masks. I think everywhere you go, you should have to wear a mask. It's you better be it's better to be safe than sorry, and wearing a mask protects each and every individual in crowded areas where there's not proper ventilation and HVAC systems, and people should be wearing the mask in order to make sure everybody is safe and sound.
I completely agree, and to a much greater extent, I think you should wear a second mask, and I think you should also wear a mask.
No. Actually, the CDC actually said you should be wearing 3 masks. So I believe in
they said 3 now.
Triple, yes, I believe in the triple wearing of mask, just like the triple wearing of a condom. I believe in both.
Well, Drake could tell you about the condom thing, allegedly, right? What was that about?
Yes, he wears he does the triple condom method, and he puts I think he puts mayonnaise. What did he put in the condom?
Didn't he put like Frank's Red Hot or something? Afterwards.
Yes, that's called the neutralization of the spermicide. That's scientifically proven. Hot sauce neutralizes spermicide. So basically, he prevents the thoughts from capturing the sperm, right, and re-implementing it into the vaginal canal.
But isn't that the whole point of spermicide? Doesn't it kill the sperm after you use the condom? Like, I don't understand that. So isn't it just like a double negative?
We're talking about the traveling of the sperm. So it's captured by the condom, and then basically these girls would take the condom, capture it, right, and then implement it into the vaginal canal. So basically, by pouring the Frank's Red Hot, he's preventing this passage of and transfer of the sperm, right, into the canal in order to form, right, a embryo.
Here at the Anonymous Investors Podcast, you don't just learn about finances and how to manage your money and how to better put yourself in a position to take care of your family and your loved ones. You also learn about how to properly use condom to prevent the loss of any sort of financial gain that you have over the course of your life to some girl who's going to try to take half your shit because she's going to claim that she had a kid with you.
Yes, that's very important. You got a lot of gold diggers out there who, they want to take you for everything you got. Recently, I think we had Black China come out and say that Rob Kardashian and that guy Tiger, I call him Tigor. It sounds better. They basically weren't paying any child support, and then they responded and said that the children lives with them 6 days a week and only lives with the mother one. And basically, she was crying because she had to sell 3 of her vehicles, 3 of her exotic vehicles, and she thinks that she should be supported through child support. So that's what Drake is trying to prevent here with the hot sauce.
I'm glad you bring that up because wasn't there a case where like Black China, she has an OnlyFans and she seems to be doing pretty well on there. She's like one of the highest grossing I guess what would you call someone on OnlyFans? An OnlyFans star or something? An OnlyFans creator?
Highest grossing.
One of the highest grossing.
You call him the highest. Right? No, you call him the highest grossing, right? Dot. That's what you call him. And you put him on dotpatrol.com. You call him the highest grossing dot.
I know there was also a case. I'm just looking this up in the meantime. There was a divorce settlement between Dr. Dre's wife and himself. And did you ever read this? It was hilarious, like what her demands were. I'm gonna see if I can find this quick because, dude, you want to talk about some crazy ass shit. Okay, here you go. Boom. Complex has an article on it. Beautiful. I love Complex, by the way. Like Complex is the best. They talk about a lot of hype shit going on, Supreme releases, whatever, music. Complex is the best. We co-sign Complex here. We love them. But here you go. Here's the headline. Dr. Dre's estranged wife explains why she needs $2 million a month in monthly spousal support. So for those of you who don't know, apparently Nicole Young, who is Dr. Dre's estranged wife, and he recently divorced her. Dr. Dre, obviously, most of his fortune, obviously one of rap's first billionaires, besides Jay-Z. And then, of course, the very great and very talented Kanye West. I love him. Very, very much so one of the most influential figures in my life, along with Elon Musk and the old boomer Warren Buffett. But Dr. Dre, one of rap's first billionaires, made a killing when he sold his Beats product line to Apple. And his wife is seeking $2 million a month in spousal support. So apparently she helped him create Beats, and she also helped create The Chronic 2001, which is a slapper of an album. So apparently she was in the studio helping him write lyrics because she wants $2 million a month. So it's pretty funny. So they actually
Objection.
Go ahead.
Okay, in that case, right, since she was very supportive, right, she supported him, right, she stood home, she took care of the children, right, she does deserve half because she's a very well-respected mother, right, she takes care of the children, right, she cooks for him, and, she does wifely duties. I don't know if she did wifely duties or not, but in order to get half, you have to do wifely duties, and if you don't do wifely duties, then you don't get half. It's proven in the court of law. They ask, are the wifely duties done?
It's funny that you say that because it just seems okay. So here we go. TMZ, and by the way, I'm more than happy as the judge. I'm more than happy to grant the motion of your objection. So I'm very very welcoming and becoming of listening to the other opinion. So it looks like TMZ, TMZ gets everything apparently. You know what's funny about TMZ? I'll just say this as like a side tangent, like a side note. TMZ is fucking crazy. Like they literally break every story right away, and like when the whole thing with Kobe happened, TMZ knew within like 5 minutes of happening. They originally got it wrong though, remember? Because they said the kid wasn't on the helicopter, and then they retracted it, and they were like, "Oh no, the kid was on the helicopter." Gianna Bryant. And then they said there were people on there that weren't on there, and whatever. There was like this whole weird thing. Like they said Rick Fox was on there, and then they were like, "Oh no, he wasn't on there." But it was like really fucking crazy. But they always break the story first. So I don't even know how they get a hold of this shit. They really should have had these people looking for Osama bin Laden
Well,
because I
because
think
they
they
don't care if
found him
it's
in a
right or
map.
not. They just break it and then they'll retract later on if it's not right. They're not like as credible of a news source. So what they do is they just worrying about breaking it first. They don't care if the news is fake or real. So they break it, and then if it's fake, then they retract on it. Like a CBS or a Fox, they can't just break it and then retract on their statement because we all know that Fox, CBS, CNN, right? Those are real media sources. They always tell the truth, and they're very respectable, unlike TMZ, who's not as respectable of a news source. And everything you see on Fox and CNN is totally and utterly correct. Otherwise, they would get sued for libel. So we have to know that it's a true and respected news source, unlike TMZ.
Yeah, it's interesting because two things. There seems to be a major shift, and you could explore this topic for like a whole episode, but we're not going to. But it seems that there's a major shift in like journalistic integrity. It's no longer about who gets the story out and gets it out the most accurately that's rewarded. It's about who gets the story out first and gets the most clicks and generates the most Google PPC, ad revenue through that sense. So that was the first thing. And then the second thing is, isn't TMZ ran by like Harvey Levin, who's like a former lawyer? So he kind of knows like what he could legally say when putting out stories that might not necessarily be entirely true. Isn't that the case?
I believe so. I believe he runs TMZ. Yes, he is a former lawyer. They got sued numerous times, but they never get caught for anything. Nothing ever happens. They play within the confines of the legal system.
I think Vanessa Bryant's actually suing them for like leaking the story well before anyone else and for getting it wrong. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I'm not too sure about any legal updates on that. If you want to take a look into that, maybe at a later point or whenever. But anyway, my point in bringing this up, though, is because it ties back to Nicole Young, of course. I mean, when you think of Dr. Dre's success and you think of his success with beats and his success with music, you think of evidently Nicole Young, who clearly had an important part in laying down the beats and laying down the framework for the Chronic 2001 album and for Dr. Dre's success. And a lot of people, if you don't know, they credit her with Dr. Dre's signing of Eminem and 50 Cent to the Aftermath record label and partnering with Jimmy Iovine. But she needs, according to legal documents obtained by TMZ, Dr. Dre's soon-to-be ex-wife, which is a little older of an article, it is his ex-wife, has provided a list of monthly expenses that explains why she needs $1,936,399 in temporary spousal support. The documents point to some pretty wild expenses, such as $135,000 a month on clothes, $20,000 on phone and email. That's interesting. I wonder who she's making phone calls to. What does she have, like 30 burner phones or something? Probably a little
No,
bit
she
more than
has
that.
to keep up with, she has to keep up with her wifely duties since he's no longer he's no longer able to provide for her in that capacity. She has to basically hire an outside firm. So that makes sense. 20,000. I have to agree with that charge. So what else? Is there nails on there? There has to be nails, and there has to clothes make sense.
I'll go through the list.
For clothes. That actually seems pretty cheap. 150,000 for clothes. I would think it would actually be more. Gucci, that's about 1,500 a pop. So she can only get about, I don't know, 100 shirts a month. That's not enough. These people, they're celebrities. They do wardrobe changes and everything like that. They might change 4 or 5 times a day when they're going to red carpet events.
So here's another thing that she lists out. I'll read out the rest of these expenses. So she says, so I said the $135 on clothes, $20,000 on phone and email, $10,000 a month on laundry, and a whopping $900,000 a month on entertainment. $900,000 a month on entertainment. Who is she entertaining? The fucking Sultan of Dubai or some shit? Like, what the fuck?
No, that makes total sense. No, that makes total sense. There's 31 days in a month. We're not talking about February. I understand if you said it was February, then that would be a little bit too much. But we're talking about other months where there's 31 days.
That makes perfect sense. So how does that break down mathematically per day? Let's see it. Let's fire up the calculator. Let's say 31 days, you got $900,000.
Well, that's 29,000 per day. So you can't
there you go.
You can't even rent a private plane because you can't afford it because you only get 29,000 a day. You have to save up for 2 days. So basically, some days you're not getting entertained. You have to go easy on it for a couple of days. And they're celebrities, right? They don't want to go to a movie theater with other people. They have to, if they wanted to go see a movie, they would have to rent out the whole movie theater. So that's like a superfluous charge. So you have to look at this holistically. Like that's not really that much money for what she needs to spend.
On the same topic of people getting taken to the cleaners,
you disagree with that? You think she should get paid less?
I vehemently disagree. I don't think she had any bearing on his life. And I think in terms of raising the kids, I think that was a valuable thing in itself. I'm all in support of stay-at-home mothers. I think it's very important that mothers try to make time to raise their kids. Otherwise, other people will raise their kids and not do a good enough job because they don't care, because inherently it is not their kid. No one will care for your children as much as you will. Just like no one will care for your house as you will, and no one will care for your car as you will, and no one will care for the people that love as you will. So I think it's very important that you're there for your children, and if you can, you should raise them. But I do disagree. I don't think $2 million a month is reasonable for that. I think maybe I like what Trump does. Funny to bring him up, but he allegedly in his divorce agreements, he agrees to pay like his ex-wives like $100,000 or $200,000 a year, and they seem to be perfectly fine with that. And I think that's a very reasonable amount of money for someone who's a billionaire to pay out to a wife for spousal support, because she realistically she realistically gave up her career. So it's not like she's gonna go and work at fucking Wendy's or some shit, or she's gonna go and work at, you know, an office or whatever, because she probably, in all likelihood, if she did work before meeting Dr. Dre, or especially early on, um, you know, she kind of I would say that she probably took a step back and like decided to raise the kids. So she probably has, you know, what you're kind of saying is like she's being compensated for like the giant gap in her resume and basically not being able to seek employment. Because I mean, yeah, realistically she could work, but I would say someone, particularly women, with like a just how the system is set up, like there seems to be some type of discrimination against women who have you know, who decided to pursue motherhood and then try to go back into the workforce, who have a gap of like 20 years or more on their resume. It seems that they kind of are like heavily discriminated against. So it makes sense that she probably would want some type of spousal support. But I think $2 million a month is a little fucking ridiculous. I think that you have a lot of attorneys that I like to call ambulance chasers, and for those of you who don't know, it's just like attorneys that chase like big amounts of money. So they probably put in their head like, oh, let's ask for 2 million and then we'll settle for like 500,000 a month or whatever. And it just seems that the attorneys do that so that they can rake in legal fees because they get a percentage of the amount of money that she's awarded in the civil case.
You also got to look at it like this: like she was married, right? She gave up her life, and no guy is gonna want to marry somebody that was previously married and has children. So, like, you have to compensate her for being a used commodity now. There has to be proper compensation. Don't you agree?
Perhaps she's not factory new. She's not dead stock, if that's what you're talking about. Yeah. She's not
She's
fucking dead stock. She did. If she goes, she can't be sold on StockX. She's not gonna go to. She's not gonna go to StockX. She'll probably go on like Goat or something. You know, like a lesser platform.
right, VNDS with damaged packaging. They say damaged box.
Yeah, and the some midsole separation, right?
Or definitely some midsole separate. Might be even a tear in the midsole.
For those of you who don't know, we're just this is all like sneaker lingo. So VNDS, very near dead stock. Dead stock meaning it's brand new, factory sealed, factory laced. So obviously she's not new out of the box. You can kind of get what we're getting at there. But anyway, on that same topic of people getting fleeced and getting finessed, it also, in that same crypto sphere, there also has been a lot of talk and about, we spoke about a little bit with like the Nelk Metacard and stuff like that. I don't want to go into NFTs anymore. I'm so tired of them. We shared our opinion on it before. We'll talk about it at another point. We exhausted every thing that we wanted to talk about in that respect. But it looks like Shiba Inu is breaking into the metaverse, and they're featuring, at least it appears that they're going to feature over 100,000 plots of land. So my main question to you, God, is does this change the value perspective of Shiba Inu? And if you're a Shiba Inu holder, what are you doing? And how are you approaching the fact that they are now going to be kind of entering into that metaverse space? And as a whole, what do you think of the metaverse space? Because we did speak about it a little bit, but do you think it's a cash grab? Do you think that, you know, it's a good thing? Like, what's your perspective on it?
I'll give you the short answer and then I'll give you the long answer. The short answer is, right, I believe Shiba Inu, right, it has no long-term prospects at all. It's a total dog shit token, as essence in the name, Shiba. So the metaverse, right, are people going to want to sit behind a camera 24/7 and live their life in a simulation? I don't think so. I think people actually want to, realistically know what's going on in the real world and not live their lives under a simulation. I see this metaverse not going anywhere. It's complete fabrication. It's not as big as people think it's going to be, but there are some benefits to the metaverse. Like, you could go on. You might be able to go to Disney through the metaverse and go on, like, see certain movies there, and play poker with your friends in the metaverse. But Shiba Inu is not going anywhere with the metaverse. I think it's a total it's basically hype in order to drive up the price of the token. Shiba Inu has 549 trillion coins. Right, that's not uh, that's not limited at all. It's a total scam. And if you still hold Shiba Inu, then you're a moron. And whenever there's hype in Shiba Inu, you should be selling it off like rapidly.
I'm glad you bring that up because now that we heard your perspective on the metaverse, I'll share mine. To be completely honest with you, no one was talking about the metaverse prior to Facebook rebranding. And when you think about when Facebook rebranded and that whole timeline, for how many years Facebook was like, we're Facebook, that's all we do, that's all we do. And they had so much money coming in. Like, oh my god, dude, what was their net profit margins were insane. They were literally printing money for the longest time, right? And they didn't diversify. They didn't move into other streams. They didn't move into other areas to innovate. They were just like, "Oh, we're the social media platform, Facebook." I don't know if you've ever seen the meme of I think it's like Kyle Kalinske that does like those face swap videos where he did one with Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg. And it's so funny. He's just every time he does Mark Zuckerberg and his impression, he's like, "I'm Mark Zuckerberg. I created Facebook. I connect people throughout the world." And like that was the whole meme is that that's all he does. Like he doesn't really do anything else beyond that. He hasn't innovated beyond that. Those videos are pretty funny, by the way. The Kyle Kalinske thing, the face swap ones. He's got some good ones, but it's pretty funny because they had so much money and so much room for innovation. They don't do anything, and then out of nowhere, you're talking about the first 10 years that the company was publicly traded, there's no innovation. They raise an seemingly infinite amount of capital. The valuation of Facebook skyrockets. Zuckerberg becomes a top 5 richest guy in the world, richest person in the world, I should say, especially. And out of nowhere, they fucking rebrand the company right before
Isn't that synonymous?
horrific earnings report
Isn't
that
that
comes out
synonymous
like
saying
a month
top
or two
5?
before.
Isn't that synonymous saying top 5 richest person in the world and top 5 richest man in the world? That's pretty much synonymous. That's that's a given.
Well, that's very unbecoming of you to say that because your implication is that women can't be in the top 5 richest people in the world.
Yes, I would agree. I would agree with that. That they can't be in the top 5 richest people in the world because they have a different biology. They don't want to work 24/7. They don't want to put their company first, and they don't want to be entrepreneurs where you have to basically work 24/7, and that's what it takes to be the richest person in the world. So, as people say, right, there's a spectrum, and men on the work spectrum tend to make more money than women, and that's the reality of life. The women they should stay home and they should cook.
Anyway, getting away from that little bit of a side tangent, though, do you agree that Facebook's rebranding kind of came out of nowhere and at least seemed to be sort of a cash grab or at least a last ditch effort to get investors excited about the company right before a fucking shit show of earnings where basically Apple and all these other tech companies just shut off Facebook's revenue stream from advertising and allowing
Well,
users to opt out of data sharing?
Well, I concur with that, right? But I also, you have to elaborate a little bit further. I think it's what you call, right, a diversion technique. People were attacking Facebook. They were attacking it, saying, we have privacy issues, this and that. And by them going into the metaverse and then using this new technology, and by changing the name from Facebook to Meta, they're taking the bad publicity and they're changing it into something else. They're changing it into the metaverse. So basically, it's what you call a diversion technique. And I wouldn't be surprised if Peter Thiel gave Zuckerberg this idea. He's very famous for using diversion techniques.
Peter Thiel, the way that he's portrayed in that movie, people say that is very similar to how he is in real life, if that's fair to say.
Yes, I would agree with that. I know him personally, so yeah, I would agree with that. That he is very similar in the movies than he is in real life. Yes, I would agree.
So on that same topic now, so Facebook rebrands, right? They become Meta. Now, do you think that here's the thing, like if you're Facebook and you're in that situation and you have these other companies essentially that for the longest time they were sort of your contemporaries within the space, especially Apple. I don't think Facebook ever viewed Apple as competition, which is kind of crazy, but Apple's more at this point they're more of a conglomerate and like a tech producer than anything else. Like Apple isn't in that like social network space, but they do have control of it. So they definitely view like Facebook and Apple's relationship as kind of like those of contemporaries. So they definitely don't really view themselves as direct competitors. But like if you're Facebook, like what would you do in that situation where Apple essentially just shut off like your largest revenue stream and you haven't diversified away from that? Like what would you do?
Well, this is where Facebook is very dumb. They weren't thinking. Back in 2008, 2009, my colleague, right, Shamak Palihapitiya, he actually gave Facebook the idea of basically creating a phone and basically owning the software and the hardware so that nobody can disrupt their ad business. And if Zuckerberg were to listen to him, they wouldn't be in this predicament they are today.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you bring up Chamath Palihapitiya because a lot of people aren't familiar with him. So I'll give him a brief introductory segment here on the show. For those of you who don't know, he runs Social Capital, which is one of the largest venture capital firms out of Silicon Valley. He's very influential in that space. He works closely with Elon Musk, Mark Cuban, and a lot of other tech-oriented individuals. He also was an early investor in, I believe, Uber, Google, Facebook, and a plethora of other companies, or as you said in a prior episode, a plethora of other companies. And he just seems like an all-around good guy. He was one of the early backers of like the Wall Street Bets GameStop rally, and he went on CNBC and just ripped into Scott Wapner, who was the host of the CNBC segment that he was on, and just kind of ripped into him for supporting the hedge funds and not really supporting the individual's freedom to buy stocks that they like, that hedge funds necessarily do not like. And it was just an interesting thing to see unfold.
He's a true gentleman and a scholar. You have to respect him. He's for the people. He's not for the hedge funds and the suits. He is a gentleman and a scholar.
He's also a very funny shit poster on Twitter too, just like Elon, and he's a good follow. He calls himself the SPAC King because he helps all these SPACs go public. For those of you who don't know, this is the first time we're talking about SPACs on here, so I'll give a little background. SPACs are special purpose acquisition companies, so they're essentially blank check companies. So you basically, the way it works is SPACs go public, and then they don't really tell you what company they're helping to bring public. So you buy shares in these SPACs, and you're kind of betting that whoever is operating the special purpose acquisition company is going to bring a very well-known company that you're rooting for to become public. And it's an interesting way to raise capital, but it's basically a blind bet, right? It's almost like you're playing poker and you're pushing all in without even looking at your cards beforehand. Is that a fair analogy?
Well, yes, and there's also concerns about how these people, they only have 2 years to find a business, and if they don't find the business in 2 years, they're gonna not get their commissions. So they're incentivized to find any business, even if it's not a good business to invest in. So this presents many concerns, and I think people should just avoid SPACs in general, unless they respect the sponsor, know the sponsor, and unless the sponsor is a gentleman and a scholar.
So it's very interesting to me about SPACs. This is the question that I had, because I'm not too privy to them. Obviously, I know quite a bit about them, but I'm not too privy to them from the perspective of an investor because, like you suggested, and like I thought about for quite some time, is I typically tend to avoid them just because they're not, it's a little too much like gambling to me, just like blind gambling. So I try to avoid things that stray from like my fundamental analysis and anything that can be empirically proven. But what happens to the shareholders of a SPAC if the SPAC doesn't end up taking any company public? Like, what the fuck happens? Do they like what even happens to a SPAC? Does it just get like delisted or something? Like, what's the process of that?
It gets diluted and they get their cash back. They dissolve it, and then everyone gets their cash back. But that very rarely happens because the people will just find any business. They'll overpay for it so that they can get their commissions because the commissions are absurd. Sponsors get like 20% of the company, so they're just going to buy anything to make sure that the company doesn't get dissolved.
Yeah, that's crazy. Didn't Stripe go public via a SPAC? I feel like they did, right? And I know that what was it, Virgin Galactic did? Is that what it was? Or what was it like what's that fucking space company with Branson? I think they went public via a SPAC, right?
Yes, that is Virgin Galactic.
Yeah, they're competing with SpaceX. They've got a lot of crazy innovations going on too that I saw, which is very interesting stuff. It looks like they're mostly focusing on like space tourism and not about like the utility of space. So I guess there is a market for that, but unfortunately, Moore's law is going to have to be a factor if they want to be able to scale that business. So for those of you who don't know, Moore's law is basically the underlying premise that over a fixed period of time, the cost of producing a technologically advanced good will come down exponentially. So I guess a good example of that is like televisions. Like televisions are pretty cheap for the most part now. Like remember when flat screen TVs first came out? They were like like $2,000, $3,000, and they were like a very almost like a luxury item to a lot of people in a lot of households, and now they're pretty plentiful. So it's actually an example of like things becoming. So Moore's law is essentially saying that
Yes,
technologically,
the
yes,
deflationary aspect of
deflationary, yes,
technology.
yes.
Yes, the deflationary aspect of technology. Yes, I do concur with that. That does basically represent Moore's law.
Yeah, perfect. Exactly how I was going to describe it. Deflationary. I was going to say it's inherently deflationary, which is awesome. And as you guys know, we love crypto and we love our Bitcoin. And one of the big reasons to buy Bitcoin is that it's inherently deflationary, which we love because by it being inherently deflationary is inherently a hedge against inflation. So yeah, TVs are a good example. Computers are a very good example. Smartphones are a very good example as well because you think about the technological innovation from the advent of the first iPhone in 2007 to today. Granted, there haven't the changes haven't been as exponential within the last 3 years or 4 years of iPhone releases, but the price seems to stay the same or come down, and the phones have more features. So, in a way, yes, it is inherently deflationary because if you're still selling iPhones for $1,000 or $1,200 or whatever the price may be when they first come out, and you have more features, consumers are getting more bang for their buck, which means that it's inherently deflationary.
Oh, yes, that makes perfect sense. And but that you have to look at the aspect that some goods are actually luxury goods, and Apple is going towards like the luxury market. So if you look at like a regular phone, the price of say like a flip phone, those things were expensive maybe 10 years ago. Now flip phones you can get them for free. Your carrier will provide them for free with an upgrade, and they don't cost anything. Like a little razor, a little flippy flip. Those phones are free now.
I believe that they refer to those phones as Obama phones.
Oh, they do. Obama phones, eh? Like a little BlackBerry action, a little BB action, eh?
BB, yes, BB, BB, BB. Yeah, BlackBerry. It's funny you bring them up. They were another one of those meme stocks that popped off. But anyway, no, yeah, it looks like Virgin Galactic. They're kind of positioning themselves to be focused more on space tourism, and it looks like Blue Origin and SpaceX are focusing more towards not just space exploration, hence the name SpaceX, but also more towards utility and docking with the ISS and various different space stations throughout um, Earth's orbit, and it looks like also just with the main crux of both companies being to focus on interplanetary travel. But I think we're quite a ways away from that. I don't think we're as close to that as people seem to think. Elon Musk comes up with these timelines sometimes, and this is one of the main criticisms I have about him is that, and it's not even really a criticism. He comes up with these fucking crazy timelines where he basically said that we would be at Mars by 2020, and obviously that didn't happen. Uh, but he also thinks that everyone's going to work at the same rate as him, and everyone is as intellectually gifted as him. So he comes up with these timelines, but I think he almost does it to try to motivate everyone. But I don't think that he should publicly say them because it's not accurate. He also did this with the Tesla Roadster 2.0. He raised capital for that in the form of taking deposits, and then he has yet to produce any sort of main news towards that. And the same thing with Tesla's automated trucking fleet. He hasn't really made too much innovations toward that, at least publicly. And it seems like he took a lot of money from Walmart and a few different other larger companies to kind of expedite that process. But we haven't heard any sort of news relating to those. So it's been very interesting that he does that.
Yeah, he's trying to motivate his workforce, and I think he has the aspect of we set the bar high, and then if we could reach half of that, that's good. Instead of setting the bar low and then getting there, and then what do you do afterwards? So there's no reason to set the bar low. You should always set the bar high and then achieve as much as you possibly can.
So on that same topic of referring to companies' finances and potential downturns within a company, this isn't particularly related to the field of equities or anything like that, but it looks like, particularly in the NFL, there was a recent headline that came out this week. I was curious about your opinion on this, where the Washington Commanders owner, Dan Snyder, who has come under fire in the past for various different allegations of mismanaging the team. The team hasn't made the playoffs for quite some
Who was
time.
he the previous owner of?
Well, he's the current owner of the Washington Commanders, but prior to them being called the
Oh, the
Commanders, they were
Redskins.
called
Right?
they were called the Washington Football Team.
Well, we call them the Washington. I still call them the Washington Redskins. I don't really care about that. That woke culture. They will always be the Washington Redskins.
Well, I think that's very offensive, and I implore you to change that disgusting behavior, because the term Redskins is very offensive to people who are
Well,
Native American.
it's below my line.
I don't understand why they wouldn't call the team the fucking Warriors or whatever.
It's
And
below
also, the
my line.
Washington Warriors is a great name, so they should have done that.
It's below my line. Below my line.
So the term Redskins is very offensive. It's like, what do you have a team called, the Whiteskins or something? Come on.
What do you want to call them? The Washington Elizabeth Warrens? What should we call them?
I think that Dan Snyder should have named them the Washington Warriors, but you know why he didn't do that? I can tell you right now. So apparently, years back, this guy is such a dick. You have to hear this. And by the way, I'm sorry to speak like this, but this guy's a fucking dick. Like, this is hilarious what he did, or what happened to him, rather. I'm sorry. So he wanted to rename the team after coming under fire, and people were threatening to boycott games and to boycott the purchasing of merchandise. And obviously, merchandise and ticket sales, if you're an NFL team, those are your two main sources of income. Like, anything beyond that is kind of like, a wash, right? So people were threatening to boycott attendance and merchandise sales. So he looked to rebrand the team. But while he was looking to do that, there was a gentleman who went out and who bought the rights to different potential names that at the time the Redskins came up with to rebrand. So one of those teams was like the Washington Warriors. There was another one that was out there. I can't recall it off the top of my head, but this guy basically bought the rights to all the potential names that were leaked, that were being thrown out, that the Redskins were going to rebrand to. And the reason he did that is because he wanted Dan Snyder to have to buy the rights to use those names from him. So this random guy owns the rights to the Washington Warriors, which, by the way, would be a phenomenal name, because you could actually keep the Redskins logo, you could keep everything about the team, and no one would be upset about it, because you're venerating the Native American heritage of the local tribes in the area. And I think it's cool. I think anything with Native American culture is really awesome, as someone who's Native American. So I could totally agree with that.
Well, why wouldn't he just pay him? Should have just paid him for the rights to the name.
This is the difference between cheap and frugality. And this is something I really want people to understand. So, see, in this case, Snyder's a bozo because he's a cheap fuck, because he could pay this guy and he could buy the rights for, first of all, he's a billionaire. I think Snyder is worth $5 billion. He can very easily pay this guy $500,000, own the right to the Washington Warriors, have a phenomenal name, keep the branding of the team's logo, keep the history of the team, and not have to call them some cheesy fucking name that sounds like an XFL team, the fucking Commanders. Horrible name. Terrible name. They literally left the team colors the same, and their quarterback is Carson Wentz. How about instead of paying Carson Wentz all that money, you kick, I don't know, 1/20th of that money to the guy who had the name Washington Warriors, and you just buy the rights from him? Who gives a shit? You know, buy the rights from him for $500,000. Let him make some money. The guy's a hustler, obviously, and it's not extortion or anything like that. It's a great name. He legally beat you to buying the rights, and you just have to accept that. You're not going to win every battle. It seems to me it was just a battle of ego, and this guy chose to let his ego prevail instead of picking the better name for the team and a better way of addressing the situation. And I wouldn't expect anything differently from a guy who's had a myriad of problems running this Washington football team. So the main thing I wanted to bring up, sorry, go ahead. You were going to say something.
I was just going to say this guy's totally incompetent. This guy is just, what's wrong with him? $500,000, that's nothing. This is $1 billion franchise. He should have just forked over the change.
Yeah, you're talking about a team that has multiple Super Bowl rings, a very historic franchise, great coaching throughout the years, like with Joe Gibbs, great quarterbacks throughout the years. Joe Theismann, a lot of people think of him and his success with that football club. So it's just very interesting how he decided not to pay out. But then again, I can't really expect too much from the guy who seems to be inadequate in managing the team and providing the team with resources to make the playoffs and an adequate health staff, which is why Trent Williams, the long-serving left tackle of the team, decided to leave the team a few years back and go play for another club because the medical staff was improperly healing an injury that he sustained. And I think it also resulted in him, and I could be mistaken, but I also think that it resulted in him suing the team because of their lack of medical expertise and differing opinions from practitioners that he visited in his free time.
Wow. So they're losing personnel now. I think this guy, he should sell the team. Him and Jim Dolan, they should both sell the team and get out of there.
I actually had this conversation with someone recently, and it's a conversation that's tough to have, right? Because like we said on the Anonymous Investors podcast, we believe in the democratization of information, and we believe for the most part in a free market and a capitalistic society. But I think if you're the NFL and you know that you have people lining up to buy teams, right? Like think about all the different groups that are interested in buying a team. When the Panthers went up for sale, right, there were talks that Diddy wanted to buy the team. There were talks that Jay-Z was going to lead a group to buy the team. Like you had 5 or 6 different teams, 5 or 6 different groups of people that were looking to buy one team that ultimately ended up like bidding up the price, which led to David Tepper from Appaloosa Management, phenomenal hedge fund investor, buying the Panthers. And it's interesting because when you have a team like in this case, the Washington Commanders, where prior to the name change, they haven't made the playoffs for many, many years, and they haven't been good. Like at what point do you institute a rule that says, okay, if you miss the playoffs for 10 straight years, you're forced to sell the team? Like, I don't even think that that's a horrible rule because when you have teams in large markets that aren't competitive and they aren't doing anything for the local economy and they're not competing at a level to which they should be because they are a large, a large cap team. Like at what point do you kind of step in and force them to sell? Or at least force the owner to sell for potential allegations against him. Like I said, about workplace environment, harassment that was going on. Obviously, the team branding. Realistically, okay, so you have the name the Redskins, right? This is how I would have played this, and maybe I'm wrong here, God, but I'd love to hear your opinion on this. You have a team that's named like the Redskins, okay? For the longest time, no one had a problem with it, but somewhere down the road, people had a differing opinion on it, and they felt that the name was derogatory, okay? Why they feel that way doesn't really matter. It just matters that people feel that way, okay? So I think the most important thing to do in that situation is to pull the people that the name directly affects. So you should pull the people who like I said, in this case, the name directly affects. I don't think you should pull white liberals. I think the opinion of white liberals pertaining to an issue about Native Americans is not pertinent unless those white liberals have Native American heritage. So it doesn't make any sense. I think you should pull directly the Native American cultures. You should go speak with indigenous people and see what their take is on the situation. And if they tell you, for the most part or overwhelmingly, that the name probably should be changed, then I think that it's more than fair to make that assertion to change the name. So on that same note, you pull Native American people, you see what they say. If they say to change the name, okay, great. Now, like I said, you make the team name the Warriors, and from there, you're able to present an opportunity um, to not only have a better like PR view of the company, but you also show that you're willing to change with the times and you're willing to adopt a more modern approach to running the franchise. So this is what I would say if I was him. And I'm not a PR person, but this would be my statement. But unvetted before going to PR people and communications people to spin it or whatever the freak those people end up doing when they release statements. I would rebrand the team to the Warriors. I would say after a long period of consideration, we decided to rebrand the team to the Warriors because the Warriors provide us with an outlet to better venerate our Native American ancestors and our Native American contemporaries, and we really appreciate like and respect the Native American culture. Additionally, it would provide us with the opportunity to retain the team's branding that has drawn in long-term fans, and the team will, from this day forward, will be referred to as the Warriors, and it'll be done in a way that shows respect to the Native American culture, and respect to the indigenous people, and like I said, it'll be a way to still draw in people who remember the team as it once was under a different name, because all the branding would be the same with the exception of the name. So.
Yeah, there's no reason why they shouldn't do that. I think not doing that is actually like lazy. It's incompetent, and yeah, they wouldn't even have to change the logo or anything like that. Because the logos can be for NFL teams can be expensive. They got to go through an approval process. They have to. I think they even have to have other owners agree with the logo because it could value other franchises if the logo is inappropriate and everything like that. So them not having to change the logo, that's a big deal. They should have just forked over the money for this.
I totally agree. It's where again, it's the difference between being cheap and being frugal. So being cheap, I always use this example. So I don't go out to eat too much. Not to talk too much about my personal life here, but it's just to create a good juxtaposition here. Um, so I don't go out to eat too much, but I leave a nice tip. So like most people would leave 20%, I would leave 30% upwards, right? But that's because I don't go out to eat too much. So when it's frugal is I don't go out to eat too much, but when I do, I leave a nice tip. Cheap is I go out to eat a lot or not as much. Let's say in this case, cheap is I go out a lot and I leave a shitty tip. Like now you're just depriving people of potential income sources, and it's just like you shouldn't do that. Like if you are gonna go out to eat, like you shouldn't just be a cheap fuck and like oh my god, I don't want to tip another $2 or whatever. Or I'm gonna tip under 20%. Like that's horrible. So, people work hard, and especially coming out of COVID, there were a lot of people in that service industry that missed out on a lot of revenue over that time. And I think if you're gonna go out to eat or whatever the case may be, you should reward people a little bit for their hard work, and especially if you received exceptional service. So in Dan Snyder's case, I think he was just being very cheap.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. He's a cheapo, right? And there's no place in the NFL for cheapos. He should be forced to sell the team by the owners.
So, if there's anything else that I wanted to bring up that just points to a situation where things are actually potentially worse than him being cheap regarding the team's branding, allegedly he was running two books to operate the company, and he had a separate book that he used to report to the IRS, and then an internal book that shows the company's real, or I'm sorry, the team's real profitability. Do you have any thoughts upon that, God?
Wow, he was cooking. He was cooking the books. Yeah, I think that's totally inappropriate for a franchise that big. He could have been causing a lot of problems for the NFL. They could have had the IRS on the NFL's ass, and it's not a good look for the overall representation of the league. Just like those players gambling are not a good look for the league, and the integrity of the game. This is not a good look for the integrity of the game. And for something like this, you can't be doing that. Just simply can't be done.
Yeah, I think that little Roger Goodell, he shouldn't be going to bat for Dan Snyder with like I said, the myriad of allegations against him. And then now this case where allegedly he was running two books. I think this is it. I think it's time to get him out. There also was that whole thing that was going on with the team when they were branded as the Redskins, where they had someone who was working for them. His name was Brandon Allen, and he was implicated with John Gruden. Remember the John Gruden emails that came out where they forced John Gruden to step down as the coach of the Raiders. He was using particularly derogatory racial language towards Maurice Smith, who was the head of the NFL Players Association, and of course that was when John Gruden was the lead commentator for Monday Night Football. But the whole thing with Brandon Allen was he was an executive for the Washington Redskins at the time, and he had he was implicated in using derogatory language, which is very interesting because the NFL opened an investigation on the Redskins because of that situation, and also through work following up with workplace harassment incidents that happened and were reported to the FBI. So I just find that to be very interesting, because it just seems like they started out with one thing and then they found out 10 other different things that were going on throughout that.
Yeah. I mean, how much was this guy stealing from the IRS with these cookbooks? Did they give a number?
I didn't see a number yet, only because the NFL is not a public entity, and it'll be very interesting to hear about that. But if this does go to court, there was some type of congressional hearing that's going on currently. So I'm expecting to hear more within the coming days, and any sort of updates we get on that about figures, I'll be sure to clue everyone in here.
Yeah, that would be something interesting to look at and see if it was in the hundreds of millions of dollars or even billions of dollars. This guy might be going to jail, so this could develop any minute now. This could be a whole fiasco that goes throughout the league.
Yeah, I think we at this point we've pretty much beaten this topic dead. I don't know if you want to do any reaction videos, but what do you think here?
I think we should save our reactions for next week. I think we got some good reactions in store, and I think the audience would love to see these reactions. So I think we should leave them something to look forward to.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So thanks again for tuning into the Anonymous Investors Podcast. It's been your boy, Jada's boyfriend. I'm again visited by God today. And we appreciate you coming through. And as always, stay cool.
Have a lovely
stay
day.
chill.
Have a lovely day.
Have a lovely day. Comment down below, Jada's boyfriend, if you made it this far into the episode.
And take a
Peace
nap.
out, motherfuckers.